Hello, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Summer Rising 2022, Year 2, What We Know So Far. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. While we await for people to come in, let's just tell you who we are. So my name is Liliana Diaz-Pedrosa, and today your presenter is going to be Kim Madden, our Director of Family Services. We're going to be joined by Karen Herrera, our advocate from the Parent Center, and together she and I will be taking your questions in the Q&A. So as we wait, feel free to use the Q&A feature to enter your questions throughout the presentation. We will have some polls to get to know you, and we'll just get started in just a minute. So I think, Kim, whenever you're ready, you can take it away. I'll see you in the Q&A.
Okay, today we're going to be covering what we know about summarizing, which is certainly more than we knew last week and not as much as we would like to know. So if we're going to do our best to tell you everything we know and to answer your questions to the extent that we know, please feel free, this will get repeated a few times throughout, but to reach out to Advocates for Children if you're having individual issues with summarizing, and we'll do our best to try to help answer your questions. Just like last summer, there's a lot of pieces that still seem to be moving. So we're just trying to sort it out as best as we can. Today, we're going to go through the types of summer programs. That part, I think, is established. The specialized supports that exist for students with disabilities and students who are learning English, and then what to do if there's an issue. The first thing we're going to start with is a poll, so we know who's here, and so we can try to help focus the training. So if you can take this, that would be great. Let us know if you're here as a professional, just let us know the students you work with, primarily which categories they fall into. Okay, we have about half the people, so if people can weigh in, that would be great. Oh, there you go. Okay, I think we can end the poll now. And let's share the results. So it looks like we have a pretty good group, a big mix of people here. So we will go through all the different grade types. And if you have a question, as we said earlier, please put it in the Q&A. This training is being recorded. I'm going to put a survey link into the Q&A at some point, or we'll open up the chat at the end and put it in. Also, when you end this webinar, a screen should pop up about the end of the Zoom thing, and there's going to be a link on there to a survey. If you fill that out, there's a space to put in your name and your email, and we'll send you a copy of the slides, so you don't have to write all of this down. There's also a lot of hyperlinks in the slides, so when we're talking about section of the DOE website, for example, there'll be a link in there that you can click on when you get the actual slides. So please take the survey. We actually also really do use the surveys. Our funders ask us to collect this information, and then some of the information we collect to try to make our trainings better as well. So just please be sure to take the survey. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so Advocates for Children is an independent agency that protects the rights of all New York City students. Our services are our helpline, which is open Monday to Thursday, 10 to 4. We have people on the line who speak English and Spanish, and we also use the language line for other languages. On our website, which the link is here, there's a lot of different guides and resources. And finally, we do workshops and trainings just like this for people. And we provide free legal services to low-income families. It's probably our most in-demand service. And unfortunately, we can't provide it for everyone, but we do our best to help, even if we can't provide legal representation. we often are trying to work things out by emailing somebody at the DOE and seeing if they can help. Okay, so another thing that we've done more recently during the pandemic is started to record a lot of these webinars. So on all different topics, if you go to our YouTube site, you can look up and see what trainings we have out there. And the recordings and the PowerPoints are there as well. Okay, so types of summer programs that exist this year. For Summer Rising, K-8, that seems to be for the most part where the DOE has focused their energies this year. There's just the general Summer Rising program, which is what they've advertised. One thing I think that's noticeable to me from last year is last year they kept emphasizing Summer Rising for all. That all I haven't seen in there as much this year. And I think because last year there were a lot of problems and there may be some problems this year as well. This year it had to be something where you applied. I imagine all of you probably know that the application deadline has passed already for Summer Rising. However, that doesn't mean, for one thing, if your child has an IEP that requires 12-month services or 12-month programs, sorry, that doesn't change if you didn't apply to Summer Rising. You're still entitled to what's on your IEP. And also what we're hearing from the DOE is that, that they're anticipating movement sometime in June, probably in mid-June, where they may open up enrollment again. So I think that mid-June date is the one that I wish I had more details on. The only thing I can say now is keep checking back on the DOE website and with the school, with your school, or if you have been matched with a school and you have questions about it, or you want to be matched with a school and you weren't, just keep checking. Probably in mid-June would be the best time. So Summer Rising is sort of the general Summer Rising program that you see out there advertised and that the DOE is talking about, with enrichment programs and students going sort of like a summer day camp for kids. Of course, there's still summer school. So for a student who was promotion in doubt, that's what that PID stands for, where they needed to be able to take summer school to be promoted, that still exists in both high school and K-8. And finally, in both high school and K-8, there's ESY, which stands for Extended School Year, in District 1 through 32 schools. It's not that common, but you can get a 12-month program for an ICT or a 12 to 1-to-1 student that's in a community school. And then also for D75 programs, which are often 12-month, you still obviously are entitled to those. Okay. So Summer Rising, is and I think I've talked about this already, but is the free summer program. It's new. The DOE just did it last year. I would say there were some efforts to do things like this in the past, and it's something I really applaud the DOE for doing. I think that, the summer is a huge time when students in the city, particularly low-income students, but really all students, need support. And not everybody can navigate the incredibly complex world of New York City summer camps. There obviously are options out there, but it's something where it's great that the DOE is trying to provide more options for students. What they're trying to do for K-8 is design programs with community-based organizations. That you often hear that called CBO, and that might just mean a nonprofit that may run, enrichment activities for kids, art programs, drama programs, things like that. And they're going to work with teachers and with DOE schools to try to create something that has some academic enrichment, but also it's just fun, so that kids are in a supported environment for the summer. And in high school, they've expanded greatly the Summer Youth Employment Program, which is a program where high school students can apply and be matched with jobs that actually pay. It's minimum wage, but they do pay high school students, and they get placed in a variety of different places. So everything from a DOE site to a private company. One of my son's friends was placed at a 16 Candles, or Handles, sorry. But stores like that, programs like that, nonprofits have summer youth employment, interns working with them. And then also there's the 12-month programs in summer school. The idea with Summer Rising this year is that it is all in person, The one exception for that could be high school summer school, where I think if you failed a course in high school and you're taking something up, they might offer you a remote program for that instead. But primarily the idea now is in-person school, and that matches what's been going on this school year as well. Okay, so when is it? This is probably the most complicated slide in here, but to explain the general concept of what we've heard so far, I mean, this could change, but for kindergarten through 5th grade, the general dates, and this is for summer rising, not a 12-month IEP, are July 5th to August 19th. Monday to Friday, 8 to 3, and then extended day is 3 to 6. For grades 6 to 8, it's a little bit shorter. It's July 5th to August 12th, so a week less time, but the same time of 8 to 3 and 3 to 6. You don't have to say 3 to 6, but for many parents who work, the 8 to 6 actually is incredibly helpful. And then moving down to students with disabilities, they have a different amount of time. So for a 12-month IEP, which is typically D75, but can include an increasing number of D1 through 32 schools, so community district schools. Students who have a small class or an ICT may actually be entitled to 12-month programming. It's because it's a pretty small program, it's usually not at that student's school, although it can be. And the hours for that vary a little bit. It's 6 hours, 6.5 hours for D75 programs and 6 hours for D1 through 32. And it's approximately 8 to 2:30. I saw 8:10 to 2:40, but just check in. They have said that at about 70 of those locations, there's going to be the 3 to 6 extended day. So the same program that you see above. And the 3 to 6 extended day is the program that's run by the community-based organization. This year, supposedly in more collaboration with the DOE. I think one thing that we heard a lot of people be concerned about was the lack of CBO expertise in working with students with disabilities. I don't know why, but they did not seem, again, like they partnered with any CBOs that work with kids with disabilities. That's something that I think would have made a lot of sense and made things easier, but they didn't go that route. Instead, they're providing professional development to CBOs to work with kids with disabilities. So I think it, you know, as if I was a parent facing that situation, I'm a parent of a child with a significant complex neuromuscular disorder, I'd be real worried about a CBO program that had no experience. On the other hand, at this point, my child does have a one-to-one aide, so maybe it would work out. But I think, you know, they definitely have made a lot more of an effort. There's a lot more collaboration set up. They actually have protected time for the CBOs to work with the students in the earlier part of the day. So it may work out. I would just ask a lot of questions if you were a parent in that position, but you should know that they supposedly are making a big effort to really coordinate and to get the DOE and the CBOs to collaborate. So teachers that know your child would hopefully be working with the CBOs to figure out how to include your child effectively. The ASD program, the ASD Nest Horizon program, this is for students who are on the spectrum. And they're specialized programs that are particularly supportive of students on the spectrum. That's the shortest program. It's 4 weeks and 4 hours a day. One thing I didn't put in this slide because we didn't know until we actually just heard back with a question about it to the DOE was, well, what if you want to do extended day? That program ends at 12, extended day starts at 3. I had the same question for D75 actually, or the 12-month programs for extended school year programs. And what the DOE has said is that you can stay and they will make sure. And in fact, you can also enroll in the typical summer rising program. Now, I don't know all the details of that. So if you haven't heard back and you're asking that same question, I know one person had that question before that they wrote in about to us. Please keep asking. If you're not getting an answer that makes sense, please reach out to Advocates for Children. And we'll try to see if we can figure that out. But I would say the DOE is really trying this year to offer the extended day programs effectively to all students, including kids with disabilities. And, you know, I think how that all plays out, we'll see. So summer rising in high school. So the summer school, if your child needed to make up, fail the grade, fail the class and needed to make up that credit, summer school is July 5th to August 12th. In high school, it tends to be at a few locations per borough. So you'd figure that out. Your school should have already been working with you about that. And it's a flexible schedule. It really varies by the subject and what you're looking to make up. The SYEP work internship program, I think the details on that are coming out within the next week or so. The applications were due in April, so that's already closed. And I think the actual dates may vary quite a bit, but generally from the beginning of July to sometime in early to mid-August. There's also College Now programs. This is something that the DOE is expanding. And if you check on the DOE website, there's more and more options there where a student can attend a college class over the summer and get experience in seeing what that's like. So high school is the one thing, I think I mentioned this earlier, but where it mostly is in person, but it could be remote, especially for that summer school part of it. And I think they actually are offering some SYEP internships that are remote, but my understanding is the majority are in person. Okay, so extended day. These are the programs I've talked about a little bit already, but they're provided by CBOs. One thing, if you did get into a summer rising program, you have technically until the start of the summer program to enroll in the DYCD site, but I would suggest doing it now, where there's a DYCD, and I'm sorry, that stands for Division of Youth and Community Development, I think. But anyway, it's a different city agency. It's not the DOE, and it's the one that's coordinating the community-based organizations. You have to sign into their site and enroll your child, just letting them know different details about your child. And that you have to do now. You should have already gotten, I'm sorry, you have to do it before the start of the school year, but I would recommend doing it early in case there's any questions that come up. And hopefully you will have gotten a link from your school. If not, the links and the directions for this are all on the DOE website. If you look up Summer Rising, it'll pop up. And I did mention this earlier that the CBOs are trained to work with students with disabilities. And at 70 12-month programs, there are CBO programs. So that's new and great. It means that, there actually are a lot more 12-month sites for students that are in District 75 or extended school year. So not every site will have a CBO. At the sites that don't have a CBO, what the DOE's website says is that they're going to incorporate enrichment and fun activities throughout the day. I'm assuming that means the 3 to 6 is not an option, but I'm not positive. So I would just keep asking if you have a child in that situation and see. Last year, one thing that they did offer some students is to be bused from the school location to the summer to an extended day location. I'm pretty sure that's not an option this year yet because of the transportation issues, but I'll get into that in a second. Okay, this is a question that we've already gotten a few times through some of the questions that were emailed in, and also we saw on our website, I'm sorry, on our helpline, but what happens if I didn't apply? The application is now closed, but we have heard spots may open up, particularly in middle school. So keep asking, keep looking, and we have heard this mid-June date is when there's going to be movement on it. And the reason they're thinking there's going to be movement is because by mid-June, they're hoping that parents who don't want the Summer Rising program they've been matched with will reject it, and then that seat will open up. So if you absolutely know there's no way you're using the Summer Rising spot you've been selected with, it would make sense to let go of it. We've had questions from parents who got matched with a site that they really was not their first choice, probably wasn't even their 10th choice. There was a parent who wrote us about her 2 children live in Brooklyn and they assigned to their school where they go, where there's a big Summer Rising program. They did not get in and they got matched with a program in Manhattan. And these are 2 pretty little kids. So she's like, how am I going to do that? I think she may actually want the Manhattan program over nothing, but she's not sure. So that's the kind of thing in that situation, I would not give up that seat. But if you know what, I definitely don't want that. This is too, unclear to me. I found a spot at a summer camp. I'm just going to go there. Then give that spot up because it will open up for another student. Okay. So busing, I think this was the biggest frustration last year for people. And I think this year there's more clarity, but there's still not a great answer. So for students the eligibility part, I think is pretty clear. If you receive busing during the school year, you should get busing during summer rising, for the same distance if the school is far enough away from your home and your child is the right age. OPT the Office of People Transportation has a chart where you can figure out if your child is entitled to busing. I think much more commonly what we're seeing is an IEP that recommends busing. So a child has specialized transportation on their IEP. There's also busing available in K through 6th grade for students in shelters, or if they have an approved exception and they're living in temporary housing or they're in foster care. So that's something that you should be working with the foster care agency or asking through the school and making sure that they know that you might fit into one of these categories and that they're asking for an exception. You do have to enroll in the Summer Rising portal by May 22nd, unless you have a 12-month IEP. If you have a 12-month IEP with busing on it, you are absolutely still entitled to busing. I think the tricky part with busing, and this is what was frustrating last year, is the DOE still has no option for the after school part of it that is guaranteed in any way. So they will bus you from your home to the DOE site, but their busing contracts end at 3. I'm not quite sure why, because during the school year, there's programs that get out after 3. And I think last year it was a little bit later, but there is no busing that they have contracts lined up for yet after 3. So for extended day, which is a big question for people, how do you get busing? What they've said is stay tuned. They're still working on it. So I imagine they're trying to contract with bus companies for it. One thing they have said on their website that is an improvement from last year, that they've really put out there already, that they will offer ride shares to parents. What that means is not that you're sharing a ride with other people. It means that they're going to give you a voucher or somehow arrange for a car service so that you can get your child at school and bring them home. It does mean that you need to do it yourself. So that's a lot for a working parent. That's not ideal, but it does mean that you can get transportation. So if at the end of the day, you can make that work, then that's great. And of course, they will give you Metro cards as well, but for some people, that's obviously not going to work. Okay, so that was a lot on transportation. And Liliana, let me know if I need to pause for questions anytime. If you feel like you are not, that's okay. I can keep going.
Sure, there's 2 questions.
Okay.
And the first one is, until now, I only received an email confirming the registration of my child. When do I expect to receive more information from school?
That's a really good question. So, I mean, if you have an email registering your child, that's pretty good. I would follow up with them, but I would say mid-June is probably when you would do that. But that means that your child is accepted. At least that would be my understanding, because for the people who we've heard from who haven't been, they have been told, hey, you registered here, but we don't have a spot for you. So if you haven't heard something bad, I think for now you should assume something good. And that's an educated guess, but unfortunately not definitive. I do know that schools, from the questions we've been asking about this, I feel like the schools right now are still working out details. So I would probably give it another week or 2 before really pushing to have more details.
And then there's one more, and it says, do students in temporary housing and students in foster care get priority for enrollment in the Summer Rising program?
That's a good question. And I think so, but I'm not positive. So let me get back to you on that if we have your contact info. And if you could identify the person in the Q&A, Liliana, and then especially if you fill out our survey, we'll get back to you, because I feel like the answer is yes, but right now I'm only sure it's yes for transportation. I'm not sure about for Summer Rising programs.
And that's all we have for now.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Well, and keep the questions coming in. They actually really help us learn more about these programs too. So for students with disabilities, they are creating an individualized summer rising accommodation plan. To the best of my knowledge, this is what it looks like. I have yet to see an actual form. This is from the DOE did a presentation last Monday night, where same as last year, summer rising was the last half hour. It was like 8:30 to 9. But this was the screenshots that they put up of the summer rising accommodation plan. So I screenshot their screenshot and I'm sharing it with you. As you can see, if you read the details for an IEP or 504 plan, what they've said is this accommodation plan is going to write up what your student needs. When I looked more closely, I got a little bit worried because it seems like it's only looking at nursing and paras, which are super important. I mean, that was a big issue last year. If you need a nurse and a one-to-one para, you probably need a nurse and a one-to-one para at a summer rising site. And if they don't plan for that, you won't be able to go. So I'm really glad that they're planning for it. I think what worries me is they don't have anything else on here that I can see. So this is the page 2. There's not page 2. This is one long page, but I just screenshotted in 2 things so you could see it. The only things that they have to check off are about nursing, yes or no. And actually it doesn't say nursing one-to-one, yes or no, which worries me. And then the DOE program professional support, they basically are talking about if you have health or feeding or toileting or ambulation, all of those, absolutely. If you have a one-to-one, you're entitled to a one-to-one in summer rising. And but for behavioral, it's a little bit more of an option. If you have a one-to-one behavior para, they're saying, well, maybe you don't need one in the summer rising program because it's not as academic, it's not as demanding. You know your child best, but I think for many students who have one-to-one behavior paras, they absolutely need a one-to-one behavior para through the summer program as well. So this is a plan that the DOE, I'm sorry, let me go back, is supposed to give to you. You can see on here that there's a line that says, wait, let me just move this up so I can see it. There's a place that says, when was this given to the parent? DOE shared this document with the parent on blank date. In full disclosure, I've asked for this and I haven't seen it yet. So I don't know, but hopefully you'll see it soon. And I certainly think you could be asking your school in writing now, hey, have you done this yet? I'd like to see it. But so far, the only things I see on here are for nursing and paras. And unless there's another page that they didn't screenshot, I don't see it. So if you have a child that has significant learning needs, for example, and needs modifications and accommodations to material, and you matched with your dream program, but some of it is academic, and some of it, you know, maybe it's a drama program or something, but you're worried, how is my child going to keep up with the play that they're working on when they need assistive tech to read to them, or they need things scaffolded in a certain way? You should be asking for that now. There are supposedly going to be special ed teachers at each program, and that would be the person to talk to as soon as you can about what your child might need, and just thinking about how is your child going to do. If you were enrolling your child in a summer camp that was not DOE, what would you be asking for? So I think that's the kind of thing to be thinking about critically and to be thinking about now. And this is the kind of supports that the DOE has said that they are putting out there for students who have 10-month IEPs. Obviously, if your child has a 12-month IEP, you're already going to be getting whatever is on the 12-month IEP. So, you know, the same small class you got during the school year, you'll be getting with a special ed teacher over the summer, or you should be getting over the summer. But for 10-month IEPs, it does get a little bit tricky. So let's say you have your child has a 10-month IEP, they have a nurse for diabetes or something, and they have a lot of different accommodations on testing, and they have sets and specialized supports for trying to make sure that they can keep up with other students and that they have accommodations in the material. That's a student who I'd be asking about early. They do have a special ed literacy teacher, and that's supposed to be somebody who supports small group literacy instruction, but also is supposed to create accommodations for other students. You know, if you had a child who has dyscalculia, a math disability, and the program was very academic, I'd be asking now because you'd want to make sure the special ed teacher was right. Just because it doesn't say it here, you can still ask for whatever accommodations you think your child needs and trying to make it work, because I think the DOE, it is a DOE program. So they have a right, they have a responsibility to provide you with something that's reasonable to accommodate your child's disability. And I've said this a lot, but for supports, ask in writing and ask now for what you think your child needs. You do not supposedly have to ask for accommodations on the summer rising accommodation plan. You don't have to ask for that. The school has an obligation to craft it and give it to you. But I think it can't hurt, especially if you don't feel like that form covers what your child needs, to be asking now anyway, just to create a clear record that you have asked. Okay, charter schools. So charter school students absolutely are entitled to apply and attend DOE public summer rising programs. But the former mayor Bloomberg also has created a new program called Summer Boost, which is a program that charter schools can apply to get funding for, to provide summer programming for charter school students. Like many of Mayor Bloomberg's initiatives, this one really emphasizes testing, standardized testing, and is very academically driven. So if that's something that you think would work for your child, you definitely can apply. You can apply to both, but you can only enroll in one program. So you can't enroll in both and then see which one you like better. The deadline for this one was also in early May. And because it's a program where charter schools had to apply, if your child's in a charter school, your best contact right now is that charter school to ask about it. Hopefully they've already talked to you about it if they think this would be a good fit. And even if a charter school did not get a grant from Summer Boost, my understanding from reading the application papers and the Summer Boost website is a charter school could work with another charter school. They could partner so that your child could go to another charter school for that Summer Boost program. So certainly ask if that's something you think would work. Okay, and also Summer Rising supports for multilingual learners. This is something where if your child gets ENL services or is supposed to get bilingual services, they can be integrated. So they're going to have an ENL teacher. I haven't heard anything about bilingual teachers, which would be wonderful if they had. Obviously, if your child gets bilingual 12-month services for a child with a disability who's also a multilingual learner, they absolutely are still entitled to that, and they should be getting that. But for students that have 10-month IEPs or students that don't have IEPs at all but are multilingual learners, they are still entitled to English as a new language support, either integrated or standalone. And the idea is that they want to try to provide more small group and one-to-one supports. This is something where it might be better than what your child gets during the school year, or it might be not as good. I really don't know yet, but they are putting out there that they're going to offer it. And I certainly would be asking now. This is just a reminder, this is true in general, this is not limited to Summer Rising, but parents who speak another language have language access rights to translation and interpretation in these top languages. So you have a right to translation of letters, forms, report cards, any documents, and you have a right to interpretation and professional interpretation, not please grab your older child to translate or to interpret for you. It has to be a professional interpreter at parent-teacher conferences, parent associations, suspension hearings, meetings with school staff, and special education meetings. So those are absolutely your rights. And on the bottom, you can see the contacts for the DOE if you are having a problem with that. Okay, I'll pause. Are there any other questions that you need me to answer, Liliana, or should I keep going?
No, the questions have been answered, but it might be worth mentioning that somebody had a question about whether the individual summer rising accommodation plan would be available in different languages. And so would you like to answer that one?
Yes, it should be. I haven't seen it in English yet, let alone in a different language, but it is supposed to absolutely be in whatever language the parent speaks. Assuming it's one of the top languages there, and it should be provided. We have yet to see one actually be provided yet to a parent, but they should be soon. And I think conversations are starting about it because we are getting questions. So that's of course the beginning of it.
And then we had another question that I thought would be worthwhile. to answer live, which is my son is eligible for makeup service sessions through his IEP, and we've been told from his school that these are going to be done through the summer program. Any idea on when we would get information on this, or if this will be done through Summer Rising?
Yes, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. In fact, it makes me realize I should have had a slide on that. A few months ago, the three of us did a training on special education, or actually maybe it was a few weeks ago. I'm not quite sure. A while ago, we did a training on special education recovery services, which were supposed to be provided starting in November or December, but which were pretty unevenly provided this year. And that's for makeup services for the period of the pandemic when school was remote. And also when they had big shortages in, in therapists who were available. Also, of course, you can get makeup services for this year when, as happens every year at the DOE, there's some students who are not served. Assuming you're meeting related services, actually, the related services form, I think just went out. And if you haven't gotten it yet, you might want to ask, but it's basically a form that says, hey, do you have related services over the summer? So for example, my son does not have a 12-month IEP, but he has a 10-month IEP with 12-month related services. That's not that uncommon. Or for the parent who just asked, you might have 10-month IEP, 10-month services, but you only got 2 months of speech this year and you didn't get it for the rest of the year, whatever the service was. Absolutely, you should be entitled to it over the summer. And I think they are going to try to coordinate that. I think what worries me is the form I got for related services. It says, pick one of these summer sites to get related services. There's very few on there. So for my son, he uses a wheelchair and we live in Manhattan. There's 3 sites. I don't think all of them are accessible. There's none even remotely close to us. And so it really wouldn't make sense. Any benefit my son would get at therapy would definitely be in the wash, or even detrimental given the amount of travel time it would take us to get there and get back. So what I did is, if you scroll way down to the bottom, there's a please contact me, none of these work. If none of them work, you should say that. If one of them works or happens to be the same site as the Summer Rising, you should say that. If you have a Summer Rising site, but you haven't heard about services, you should write down at the very bottom of that related services form, please contact me. And what you can ask when they contact you is, you could say, well, my child is at the Summer Rising site. Could you assign whatever service provider your child needs and see if they can provide it there, if that's what you want. Oops, sorry. You also can ask for an RSA, which that training I know was 2 weeks ago. So we have that one recorded and up on what is an RSA, how to use it for related services in general, or also for SETs, for people who didn't get special education teacher support services. It's a voucher. It can be hard to find somebody, but you should definitely, if you get that, call down the list of DOE providers, call other schools and see if they might know somebody. If you're having trouble using an RSA, we did actually create an email this year at Advocates for Children. That's rsa@advocatesforchildren.org. And you can use that to, if you've tried all the different places and you're still having trouble, or you found somebody but they don't want to work with the DOE because of X, Y, and Z, definitely reach out and we can try to see if we can troubleshoot with that. But absolutely, the DOE, I think the idea is that they want to integrate related service makeups at the Summer Rising program. I think it's the details of how that's going to work that could vary a lot, if that makes sense. But I'm so glad you raised that. It's a really good point. Okay. So what if there's problems with Summer Rising? One thing, I mentioned this earlier with, the DOE does have an obligation to meet your child's disability needs during the summer. So, on top of the IEP, which I don't think it's as clear, do you get the same rights to FATE during Summer Rising? Maybe not. But you do have rights under the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and a 504 law, and also under a 504 plan if that's what your child has. The 504 plan and the IEP should describe your child's needs, and the Summer Rising program has to provide accommodations and supports to students with disabilities. And publicly funded programs, which every single one of these are, it can't discriminate. So I think, one of the most common things that we heard last year and that I'm anticipating hearing this year is, great, I have a child with a 12-month IEP. I'm so excited that they're not going to be illegally excluded from the extended day program. There's an extended day program at their site, but you're not giving me busing. The DOE is not saying no transportation. They're saying we haven't worked it out yet. Please check back. And I think the reason they're not saying no transportation, after 3 is because it's illegal. It's pretty blatantly illegal. The IEP absolutely, the federal law does require that if an IEP recommends transportation, it has to be provided for required after school activities. Anything that's provided by the school, that's run by the school. So if you were at a school and there was a CBO that came in and rented space, but the school didn't help you apply, they just happened to be at the school site and you applied there, I don't know that you would be entitled to transportation. But that's not this case. You're applying through the DOE in coordination with the CBO. So I think legally it's pretty clear that you're entitled to transportation. Practically, I think the problem is what they're saying pretty openly is that they have real issues with bus company contracting and they're having trouble finding transportation for after 3. So if you have a problem, and it could be any one of these, could be transportation, could be, my child's in a program in one area and I want them in another, or my child's IEP requires these accommodations and I'm hearing that they're not going to provide them. First, of course, start with the DOE, with the school. You can write to the DOE central offices at these 2 emails, the summer@schools.nyc.gov or special education at schools.nyc.gov are the 2 dedicated emails for this. I will say so far to date, my emails to summer@schools.nyc.gov have been responded to with generic automatic bounce back emails without anything else. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't keep trying. If you have a child who the real issue is because of a disability, you may also want to try the special education email or copy them both. Finally, you can speak to the superintendent's office as well. You can contact AFC if none of this is working. You can contact our helpline or info@advocatesforchildren.org. One thing I would say with that is it is really helpful when you contact us for you to let us know who you've spoken with and what they've said so far. Sorry. And then you can also contact a government agency if you feel like there's discrimination on disability or language. The New York Attorney General has a complaint ability. Also, US DOE Office of Civil Rights, you can complain, and New York State Special Ed. So with these, you're basically filing a complaint about an agency not complying with the ADA or the IDEA, and they may investigate it. Finally, this is not connected to summarizing, but as has been true in the past, there are summer meals available through the summer meals program. So if your child is not attending summer rising where meals are provided and your child is under 18, you can get meals. And the summer meals program, if you click on this hyperlink when we send you the PowerPoint, does have a lot of different programs throughout the city where you can pick up meals. And if you have, that's it for our presentation. So please ask your questions in the Q&A. Please, I know I've plugged this a lot, but please take our survey. When you close out, it should pop up. And also Liliana or Karen, if you can put it in the Q&A or the chat, that would be great. Okay. Here, let me just let me see if I can get the, nope, it's not working. So maybe you can put the summarizing survey in there.
Give me one second and I will.
Oh yeah, take your time. And I see Ms. Morales, I'm so sorry you couldn't get 3 p.m. pickup. Please write to AFC if you're hearing that again. I know transportation was a mess last year and I'm worried about it this year, but obviously that shouldn't be the case. And I'm glad it was helpful, and please reach out, let us know if you're having trouble. Share this training with other people. Thank you for coming the first day back in the morning after a long weekend. I appreciate it. I'm sure you're all here because you're really worried about the summer. And I have to say, as a parent myself, I haven't heard yet. It's driving me bananas. I really want to know what the heck the plan is, because it's late. It feels really late to plan for the summer. But hopefully we'll all hear soon and it will work out. Okay.
So we're going to stop the recording now, and we'll take questions from those of you who raised your hands earlier. So thank you so much for joining us, for those who are watching the recording, and please stay in touch.